Oh, yeah, it's wonderful. So, hi, Randy. How are you?
Hi, Rose. Welcome. Welcome to Life by Randy at the end of this amazing, interesting, often challenging, and fabulous journey and adventure of ending 2021.
I know. And thank you so much for having me back. It's such a privilege. I'm so honored that you want to have me come back again in this calendar year before we get into the new year. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
I thought with you would just be a great way to wrap up 2021. And you are also back by popular request. And some key
thank
members of
you.
my family were like, gosh, we love Rose. I said, of course we love Rose. Rose is amazing. So just for those who aren't familiar well, first Life by Randy, I've got a little bio in my about section and my a website lifebyrandy.com will tell you my story. And I'm a fabulously miraculous breast cancer survivor, stage 4, metastasized to the bones. And on my journey and what has worked for me, within 5 months, I moved into a cancer-free, disease-free diagnosis. And without any surgery and radiation and uh, so anyway, we did it with largely energy work, and so Life by Randy is a lot of that kind of information, that kind of content, and just sharing with those who are interested of how I process life and process the various challenges that we sometimes all face, and some of us at one time or another, certainly with the cancer percentages and other diseases you could just kind of fill in the blank of whatever that disease is or whatever that challenge is, and really think that what we're going to talk about largely today with Rose is setting those intentions, not resolutions, but intentions, and really working to embrace your life and your challenges to evolve. But before we get there, I want to share with our community Rose and how we met. So my husband and I have a home at Lakeside Chautauqua, which is a Chautauqua in Ohio on Lake Erie, which is in between Toledo and Cleveland. And Rose and I met there at the farmer's market. So Rose shares some of her wonderful treats at a cafe that she has founded called Root to Rise Wellness Cafe, in addition to a yoga studio, Soul Stretch Yoga Studio, and Soul Cycle, I believe it is.
Soul cycle, yes.
But Rose and I share having had breast cancer and having moved through it, and with the lens of the gift that the breast cancer was for us and continues to be for us. So, Rose, why don't you share a little bit about you and that journey and how that led you to be doing exactly what you're doing now?
Thank you so much, Randy. As you know, or as your listeners might not know, I didn't come to yoga until I was about 43, so about 10 years ago. The reason why I came to yoga was because I was a media executive. I owned a boutique ad agency in Cleveland. We were an agency of about 5 girls, 5 women, and we were super busy. And I was very super stressed. And so a friend of mine suggested yoga. So I thought I'd go mostly just for the workout. I wanted to maybe tone up, lose a few pounds, and then also to relieve some stress. What I discovered shortly after just taking a few classes was that yoga was not just a workout, it was a work in. And through yoga, that became my path to peace and self care and self love. So then that little entrepreneurial brain in me said, well, I love this gift that I was given, and I'd like to share it with other people. So I went and got certified as a yoga teacher back in 2011. And so then with that certification, I was able to bring yoga, my style of yoga, because you've experienced my classes, they're a little different and a little unique, to many people in Westlake, Cleveland area, and now up here in Marblehead, Lakeside, Chautauqua, and Port Clinton. And so it's been a gift and a journey. And so my intention was to build this yoga community based on 3 things: movement, nourishment, and education, wellness. So everything was going nicely. I was still in the ad world. And then in 2017 and 18, I got diagnosed, and it was sort of a blessing because it changed everything. So I ended up selling my ad agency and doing wellness full time. So in 2020, I opened up the Wellness Cafe. And since then, it's been so well received. I've done my own yoga teacher trainings. I've done yoga retreats to Italy. I just took a retreat to Italy in October. There was 28 people with me. I've done wildly successful Ayurvedic cooking classes, and on and on. And so people are craving the knowledge. And like what you said, the disease, not just the disease, they want to get to the root of what is bothering them, not just the old style. And I love how you beat cancer. It's wonderful, because I'm for all holistic and alternative methods. I also believe in science, but sometimes the old school way of medicine is very linear and traditional, and many doctors don't look at the whole thing. I was fortunate with my breast surgeon that not only she was science, her parents were from India, and she understands Ayurveda. So she was the whole mind, body, spirit. And I was blessed that I found this woman. Our relationship goes back 10 years. So she was supportive of me with my journey with trying to heal myself in other modalities besides traditional, or in addition to traditional medicines like chemo and radiation. And 4 years later, I'm healthy and thriving and spreading that message. That's how you and I encountered each other, with those wonderful farmers markets as we were selling our juices. And you're such an inspiration and a beacon. You're so, a lot of it is here. And you have this. You have to be positive. It's the energy, and you have such great energy. And so people come up to us, I know you too, and they say, what is it? How it's just attitude, total attitude.
And a couple of things that I'd like to explore before we get into the heart of the matter here for this particular podcast is yes, it's attitude and attitude plus. And so if for my regular followers of Life by Randi, they know that one of the books that changed my life is by Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, How to Lose Your Mind and Create a New One. And it is more than just the attitude. It's why do some people have this positive attitude but never manifest? And that book helped explain the missing link to me of we are all energy and frequency. So the best that I could understand quantum physics, and Dr. Joe Dispenza makes quantum physics understandable to the average person. I'm a lawyer, not a doctor or science background. And so it spoke to me in ways that I could understand and break down these, what I consider to be complex principles. But it is finding the frequency of joy is how I healed. That is to say, find the elevated emotion of that which you wish to experience in advance of the event happening. And you therefore are a match to the frequency in the quantum field. And it has no other choice but to come to us and manifest in physical form. And so that was crucial to me. And so during the cancer, and all in my bones, and so many broken ribs and very, very painful, but I had this, right? Our thoughts, and we control our thoughts. We actually choose to think every single thought we have. We choose to do so. And the more deliberate we can be, the better off our life can be, especially if we can hit those frequencies, right? And live in that state in advance of it actually happening. And so that's the long and short of it. Is now the Cleveland Clinic did not recommend for me, though, surgery or radiation or chemotherapy. And they said there was really nothing they could do for me at stage 4. So I didn't overtly choose not to do that.
Do it. Yes, you had it wasn't an option.
Correct. And so I looked at that as a blessing, because therein gave me the permission without having to wonder, should I do it? Should I not do it?
Correct.
The option was taken away from me.
Which is a blessing. You're
I
right.
was right. And so I was left with that which I've studied for 15 years. And I said, after a first, bumpy 5 days or so, I know what to do. This is going to be a fascinating journey, is how I looked at it. And I know words, as a lawyer, words mean everything to me. And so interesting, you said, traditional medicine. When I think of traditional medicine, I think of going back to ancient Chinese medicine. To me, Western medicine on the course of human history timeline is a blip right here. And so, right, and I'm sure you know that from the Ayurveda and the Ayurvedic practices, that it goes back centuries and centuries. And so some amazing friends of mine and new friends that I've had on the channel, and specifically Stacy Newman, is trained in ancient Chinese medicine, Eden energy, which is similar to Tai Chi and Qigong, which the Cleveland Clinic has. They have Eden energy practitioners and Reiki practitioners. Yes, they do. And so there is that I consider that science as well. It's just not Western medicine science. Correct. So quantum physics, I consider science. I know that, there's a, debate whether some people, scientists think quantum physics is science or not. Regardless, I know science can be kind of a buzzword or trigger word right now. But there are a lot of, there are studies and certainly centuries of healing modalities, right? And I think what you did and still do is then blend them beautifully. And I did. I took some. I took some prescriptions and estrogen inhibitors. So I did that. I'm off everything. When the cancer went away, I'm done with that. And I'm advised otherwise, but I'm in charge of my body as a sovereign being, and I'm advising myself with my higher self and my God. So
it's to your intuition, which is good. So you have to.
And I think that's all being heightened, right? I'm seeing and hearing people's intuitions being a lot more heightened, and we're going through such unique and very interesting times in 2020, 2021. And now we've got this takeoff, right? Which we're getting ready. So I think we're on the tarmac right now, Rose, right? And so Rose has an email blast that she does, and they're wonderfully brilliant and funny and interesting, and just really reflects the personality and essence of Rose. And so I don't know, was it a week ago or so, this email blast came out, and it said, "Welcome to Flight 2022.
2022.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You're right. Right. Almost lost a year. And so we have Lindbergh here. So
perfect. That is so cool.
So I'm in my husband's study. My husband's a pilot, and I thought, well, what perfect place to sit here and do this podcast with you. And as we go into Flight 2022. And Rose, do you have that in front of you?
I do.
Are we ready to kick that off and kind of fire up the engines?
I think we should fire up the engines, love. And usually when I've said this little saying the last 2 or 3 Januaries, just before in January, right around the time that I'm teaching the first week of the yoga classes. I always start all of my yoga classes with this saying. So it says, welcome, good morning, and welcome to Flight 2022. We are preparing to take off into the new year. Please make sure your positive attitude and gratitude are secured and locked in an upright position. All self-destructive devices such as pity, anger, selfishness, and resentment should be turned off at this time. All negativity, hurt, and discouragement will be stowed away now. If you should lose your positive attitude under pressure during this flight, simply reach up and pull down a prayer. Prayer will automatically be activated by one thing, faith. Once your faith that is activated, you can then assist other passengers who are of little faith. There will be no baggage allowed on this flight, my friends. God is our captain, and he has cleared us off for takeoff. Destination, greatness. So I love to say that little poem. I don't know who the author is, but it's been around maybe a couple of Januaries, just to remind us, um, you know, Randy, you and we can look back, look behind your shoulder just for a minute. Just turn around, look behind your shoulder. And as you look there, just remind yourself that you're not going there anymore. You're not. And so that's how I start my yoga classes out. I read the poem and I tell my students to look behind their shoulder and I say, you're not going there anymore. Okay. Future forward, forward in motion, onward. We're about ready to take off into the new year. So let's leave all of that baggage behind. And we all know what that baggage is. Sometimes that baggage, we believe it's in the form of a resolution. And so I think that's one reason why maybe this last email blast resonated with you and so many other people, because all of us, this is the time of year, this week, right now, that we are all into this resolution mode. And that's nothing more than code for all this baggage that we think we're going to be able to flee and put away or stow away, put underneath, put above in the luggage, or just stow it away and put it way back in steerage. And what happens is, because they're resolutions and not evolutions, they always come back. Whether it's end of January or beginning of March, or, everybody knows we all have the best intentions. And that's why we set these resolutions. But then eventually they always come back. So I wrote the blast. And I know one reason why you wanted me on the show was to talk about how we change that. Because what is different? What can we do differently so we don't, quote unquote, fail at a resolution? So, like, Randy, what resolutions do you think of when you think of January? It's coming up. Like, what kind of resolutions do you think about that people normally make?
I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to stop drinking. I want to stop drinking so much. I want not to eat so many sweets. I don't know, have more patience with my kids.
Love that one. Yeah.
But I hear that. And exercise more. Yeah, I think those are the usual ones.
Oh yeah, we the way that we talked about it, it's a hard time of the year, because this is when we really start to we become competitive with ourselves a little bit. We start to we make resolutions with ourselves that we know we can't keep, as opposed to accepting who we are for what we are. We start to really become, we measure ourselves against ourselves, is the best way to put it. That's what a resolution does. Because, last year, did we write that book? Did we launch that podcast? Did we make that $1 million? Were we on time every time for our kids' recital? Or did we go somewhere romantic with our spouse that we haven't done in 10 years or whatever? On and on and on. So a couple of years ago, I got to thinking, what if we just put all those things aside, and maybe instead of have a resolution, resolve to evolve as a person? Because think about this, Randy, you're such a different person when you were 20 versus 40 versus you just turned 60. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and your husband the same, and me and my husband, I was a different person when I was 20 versus 53. I've had so many more experiences now. I don't have answers. I just have experiences that I didn't have when I was 20. So why is it that we try and evolve so much when we're younger, but then we get to a certain age and we think we know we don't need to evolve anymore? When I was in Italy in October, I love journals. I have all kinds of journals all over my house. And I was in a leather shop in Rome, and beautiful leather shop, and this beautiful black leather journal called to me because of the inscription. It was tooled in gold, and it said, quote, I am still learning, end quote. And underneath it said, Michelangelo, aged 87. He's
Oh,
always
yeah,
evolving.
yeah.
So as adults, what can we do to keep evolving? What can we do instead of the resolution of trying to create change? Where do we get to the bottom of it? How do we get to the root of it in order to finally manifest that change? So yogis believe um, you have to go back. You have to lean in. You have to tackle something we call the white elephant in the room. And so maybe I don't know if we can get this PDF file to you so you can put it in your website for your listeners to download.
I
Um,
think I will.
maybe we can get this done. So, but I'm going to explain this to you and your listeners because it's a very powerful tool. This simple little page. This is a nice big what we call a white elephant. And you've heard of the white elephant?
Yes.
So you know
Yes.
what it means. And so when I give out this little handout, I also give out this little description of what a white elephant means. And I'll just simply read it to you. The white elephant in the room is an English idiom for the obvious truths in our lives that we consistently ignore. We all know that it's there, but we don't want to deal with it. And so very often we pretend that we've made the decision to fix it. So the decision to fix it is the resolution. That's our way of pretending we're fixing it. But what we've done is simply signed up to try again until it gets uncomfortable and too big. And then we just ignore it. So in my last email blast, I talked about the 3 C's, which are you need to be willing to make the choice to take a chance, or your life is never going to change. And you have to start with identifying your white elephant or elephants in your life. So I want to encourage, if we can get this PDF file to your peeps, I want to encourage your peeps to download this, print this off. And then at the top, or maybe all over this big white body, write down some obvious truths that maybe you've been ignoring in your life, some big white elephants. So you know what we mean by big white elephants? Like something that's just soul crushing. You know what I mean? Like they're so big, like they get on your chest and it's like, it's so hard to breathe because you've been dealing with it for years. You know what I'm talking about, Randy? It could be a person.
My first marriage.
A what?
Can I say that?
Wait, what did you say?
My first marriage. That was this. I know I need to do something about this. This isn't working.
Yes.
For 17
And
years.
how long were you married the first time?
17 years. So
17 years. Yes.
But it's that you need to address it. And he needed to address it too, my first. I don't want to dishonor him but we needed to address this marriage that wasn't working. Yeah.
Yes. In fact, it's funny you bring the marriage up because last year I gave this out to a handful of people, many people in several of my classes. And one woman, I think she ended up moving on from her marriage. It was a toxic marriage. It was a big elephant in her life. And this little sheet changed everything because it made her see front and center what some of the, why was she so miserable and unhealthy in her habits? It's because she was not in a great relationship. But it could also be a job. It could be a friendship. It could be a habit. It could be a place you live. It could be, the white elephant can be anything. And so until we identify this big boy, we can't evolve, and we're just setting resolutions that are just going to fail. It's a quick fix, and we're being disillusioning to ourselves. We're disillusioned with ourselves. So I challenge my students. I say, hey, go here, start here first, write it down, and then right under here in the belly, think about how you're going to tackle this in 2022. to. So instead of making a resolution of what I think I need to give up or what I think I need to change, what is the single most toxic, big chest crushing, soul sucking elephant in your life? That's what you've got to address. If you can address this, then perhaps everything else in your life that is a symptom of this, because drinking, overshop, excessive shopping, gambling, sexual addictions. My husband, who's recovering for 35 years, he'll tell you that most escapisms or addictions are simply a symptom of something else. So the alcoholism, the drug addiction, the 5 glasses of wine, the smoking, the binging of Netflix, or going to the mall and dropping $2,000 on things you can't afford, or on and on. Those are just symptoms.
Yes.
Of
Yes.
this.
Yes, Rose.
So how do we get to this? So it's the 3 C's. And it's very simple, Randi. I mean, I know it sounds simple in theory, but if your listeners want to write this down, it's just choices, chances, change. You have to make a choice to take a chance on identifying this, or your life is never going to change. And here's the thing, my loves. The most persistent and biggest blocks come from one thing: you. Not the white elephant. You. You are the most persistent and biggest block in your life and in your path of evolution. So it takes a lot of courage to
So it's
reclaim.
no one else's fault or responsibility. Responsibility is a better word than fault. Fault means blame, right? It's no one else's responsibility but your own to change. Not your parents, how you were raised, an ex-husband, ex-wife, and your boss, and right. I think that's worth, as my husband now says, foot stomping it, truly. And until that, it's denial and lack of taking responsibility. But if you're brave enough to
Courage.
see it, right, to see it, name it, right, write it down. It wasn't until in my first marriage, I was with my sorority sisters at a really safe, emotional place in an artist's home in Montgomery, Alabama, in a courtyard that was just beautiful. And we go there all the time. My husband and I just visited her. Camilla is her name. Camilla Armstrong, fabulous artist. I'd like to have her on Life by Randi. And it was a safe place, and with my sorority sisters from many, many years ago. And I didn't write on the elephant, but I verbalized. And that was the beginning of it. So it was now out of me, right? And
Wow. So that's when you came to understand that the white elephant was the marriage?
Yes.
In that moment.
But once you say it, it becomes its own entity. It has this separate energy, right? It's very interesting what happens. Totally. And so I can see why you're having your students write it, because now it's out of you and it's something separate where you actually are forced to examine it. Now, what do you want to do? Right? Is that why there's a particular energy behind it? Is that why?
Totally. Because yogis believe, we believe in manifestations and visual, and this is a whole nother podcast, but every year in the middle of January, I host a manifest workshop. And I invite a bunch of students in and I give them a little manifest board. We may have talked about this in the past. I do believe in the power of manifestations. You write things down on the board, or the vision board to me is a conduit to God to make your dreams and your visions and your hopes come true. But God needs you to clean up your carnage. He needs you have to have the courage to reclaim your evolution of who you are. And you have to start here first. You can't just slap a bunch of things on your vision board with all of this wake of unresolved stuff hanging in your past behind you, because you're going to either let it go or it's going to keep dragging you behind you. It's the hook. You can think you're going forward and then the hook will come and sweep you all the way back in, because you have to do the work. You have to do the work. Brene Brown has a great saying. She says, we don't need, in the midst of human struggle, shame for simply being human. So many people don't want to deal with this because they have shame.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure you're such a successful, beautiful, passionate, highly vibrational woman that to have a divorce, you know, you didn't want to go through, you didn't sign up for that.
Well, and plus vows meant so much, right? Till death
Yes.
do us part. I mean, that I was raised that way, and that I gave my word, and to say, oh my gosh, this just isn't
Correct.
working. I remember
You
asking
were
my father on my birthday, like, Dad, can I? I needed someone to say,
to validate because you're feeling shame. So I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. You know, she says the last thing we need in human struggle is to feel that element of shame. Guilt and shame, yogis believe guilt and shame should not be what's driving the bus. So many times we don't get to this because we have such guilt and shame. Well, you know what? It's till death do us part. I made my bed. I'm going to have to live in it. It doesn't matter if this is not working and I'm dying a slow death and I'm so toxic that I'm going to get breast cancer. I'm still going to stay in this marriage because it's till death do us part. And I will be so ashamed if this is such a failure. And so in Ayurvedic medicine, which is 4,000 years old, because, you know, like you said, to your point in the beginning, modern Western medicine is only about 150 to 180 years old. Up until the mid 1800s, I think I mentioned this to you, it was illegal to cut into the human body. There was no such thing as surgeries. So 2,000 years ago came Chinese medicine, and that was all about the meridians, all up and down your body. But 4,000 years ago was Ayurveda. And so the Ayurvedics and the Chinese doctors believed in toxicity to cause illness that could even be starting here or in the heart. And so no wonder why, you know, perhaps you got sick or I got sick, because there was so many unresolved things. For me, it was unresolved issues in childhood. And until I was willing to do this and look into what the white elephant of my life was. And I've actually had several white elephants. It just hasn't been one.
I have two. I don't want to say that was my only one. No. I
I'm
think we
sure
all
there was
have
more, Randy.
varying degrees, right?
Varying degrees.
Our growth and evolution, though.
Correct. So instead of a resolution, I am going to encourage your listeners, Randy, to take courage, take that step towards freedom, take that step towards personal evolution. Forget the resolutions this year. You don't need to worry about losing that 10 pounds right now. You don't need to worry about maybe, making time. It's important to make time for kids, but or maybe trying to get into that wedding dress of yours before your kid gets married this summer, or whatever it is. You don't need to worry about whether or not you're going to write that book this year or make that $1 million. Right now, for this month only, before you manifest those goals, okay, clear out, make way, clear the path. Start by leaning in and identify the white elephant or elephants in your life. And so when I give this out at the beginning of the class, and then, and I don't have one with me, they're actually upstairs because I'm preparing to start to teach this. The next whole 2 weeks will all be on the Resolve to Evolve theme. So at the end of the class, I place in everybody's hand a little itty bitty brass elephant. So this is the white elephant. Oh. Then in Chinese New Year, and also in Chinese medicine, the elephant, the little brass elephant that I give to them as a little takeaway place. Very symbolic. It's very lucky. It's very feng shui. Chinese medicine believes that the elephant is a symbol for good health, good wealth, prosperity, long life, and the manifestation of all hopes and dreams. So we start the class with the white elephant. We end the class with this little tiny little brass elephant that I have them take home, because elephants are such good luck in Chinese astrology and in culture, Chinese culture, they symbolize so much positivity, but it's the brass elephant that moves us forward. But we cannot put the cart before the horse. The white elephant has to come first. So do the work, listeners.
Be courageous enough, right? We all know when, Rose, I've talked about this before, and I've talked with some cancer patients around the Cleveland area and just around Ohio that friends of mine know of a girlfriend, and they give me a call. And I say always to them, if we're honest, we know why we got the cancer. And that's not to blame, that there's no blame there. It's that cancer or disease, anything challenging, but specifically disease or a tumor, it's a messenger. And so one of my healers, Stacy Newman, had set that up for me at the very beginning when I began to be diagnosed a year ago, November. So November of 2020. And she said, stay open, loving, and curious. This is a messenger. Ask what he, or it wants, name it. And what it wants. And so my breast tumors was named Melissa, and we developed a relationship. And I developed a relationship with my cancer cells. I called my C cells. And I thought that was sweeter than cancer, because cancer is a scary, word. And the doctors treat it as scary, and it's scary. And you've got these cancer cells in, the fact is we have cancer cells in our body all the time. Just our immune system cleans them out and they don't replicate. So they were replicating for a reason. And I knew why the cancer showed up in that form. And once I learned the lessons, it moved on because it came in, right? And so that's what happens.
The work, though.
All these circumstances, adversities from the time we're born into this kind of 3D plane, what could be a brutal existence. And if we look at it that way, which I always have had the gift of looking at things that way, as just my natural personality or propensity, I think we all have these different propensities, right? And so that's come more naturally to me than the blame or hate or that kind of thing. And so I was like, okay, what is God trying to teach me? Surely he loves me so much, right? Divine love. We have the divine living on the inside of us. We are divine beings ourselves. And so why did this adversity show up? Or why did my boyfriend break up with me? Or why doesn't my mom really love me? Or why do I have abusive bosses all the time? Or why can't I get ahead? Right? I mean, all these things that we all can carry around on varying levels. It's like, no, what is it trying to teach me and show me? And how could I advance from this? How can I evolve, to use your words, resolve to evolve? And so, not that I planned on talking about my ex-husband. We've been divorced for, 12 years, and I bless him so much, bless. And I married the love of my life, and we are just so compatible. But the one saying my ex-husband would say is, if as you're crossing a swamp, don't be swatting the mosquitoes when there's, crocodiles coming after you. And that reminds me of that mosquitoes are the symptoms of things, right? And there's bigger issues. There's the root cause. So get to the crocodile and not the mosquito. So it's not the 10 pounds or the 20 pounds. It's why are you overeating and indulging? What are you covering up?
Correct.
Right? Isn't that
the fact that you can be forgiving of him is huge, because so many people have been divorced for decades and they're still toxic because they can't let it go. Just because the marriage is final with a divorce decree doesn't mean that they've tackled the white elephant. They just swept it under, they're still as bitter today as they were when it happened. So you're so evolved because the fact that you can send blessings and love to the person that you're no longer married to is huge. It's a great example of how to evolve and move on. And then you become more open and you're a receptacle for blessings. So kudos to you, love, because that's huge. The fact that you can send him love.
Oh, yeah.
And good vibes.
And thank you so much for that. And I always felt that way and never really spoke ill of him. Why would I married him. That would be a reflection on me as well. And so, but the amount of, former spouses that keep, stoking the flame of
Yes.
hatred and animosity, especially when you have children. We didn't have children. I couldn't have children because I had cancer back when I was 31, 32. And that took the ability to have children away after a series of adoption attempts and surrogacy attempts. It didn't work out as well. And it was God's plan there. There was 10 years of pain, but it was God's plan, and my co-creating with him on some level. And that would have been a challenging scenario actually, but regardless, the amount of parents that actually, let me say this, I heard this one saying, this one quote: you have to love your children more than you hate your ex-spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I'm hoping
They should print that and put that on tea towels and have those as gifts for ex-wives with children, because those are very wise words to live by, because you're going to do more harm to your kid bad mouthing your ex than you really can even imagine. So
exactly.
taking the high road and loving your children more than hating your spouse, your ex-spouse, is such wise words to live by. Hard to do, but if you think about the importance of it, you should do it. Absolutely. But
Well,
you did it the right way, and it was never going to serve you to be bitter and resentful. And you knew that.
and
Yeah.
and forgiveness, right? We've heard this. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself.
Sure.
And what is that also about forgiveness is like wishing someone poison but drinking it yourself or something.
Yeah. It's
It,
toxic.
it,
It adds to the toxicity of your body.
energy.
So
And we're all energy and frequency. We've got the karmic effect, the boomerang effect. What we give out comes back to us. We own our energy all the time. Energy is never created nor destroyed. So we get to choose who we want to be.
correct.
And for
If it's meant to be, it's up to me. So you and I choose to remain positive, and we're trying to make impact in our little corners of the world, and being example of being positive and evolving. We've both evolved. You're through your cancer, but even before your cancer, you evolved because you had other challenges,
yeah,
other white elephants to tackle.
yes.
So which you tamed.
And I think that that are most evolved or open to the evolution are those that have had a lot of white elephants, right? They're God's refining tools.
They sure are.
So I look at it that way, but we all choose to create who we are, though. I really believe that. And I tell my husband now that when I turned 19 and I was at college, and I would look at different older women and say, gosh, I like that. I want to be like that, or I like that about her, or women in their 40s and 50s that seemed, so old to me, but 19, I guess you are old. It's all relative. And the two words I thought, what would I give? What do I want to embody? What do I want to present at all times to the world and at home when no one's looking? And the two words that still stick with me, and it's my motto, just two simple words: grace and dignity. And so I wanted everything I experienced to take in through that lens of grace and dignity. Everything I give out is grace and dignity. And if it wasn't in alignment with that, then I would alter my behavior, alter my thinking that way, because everything's an inside job. What's in here comes out here, and comes out even with the vibe, with the energy, right?
Mhm.
And
Totally.
so again, as we're coming into 2022, after going into, a couple rough, still unsettling years of kind of what's going on the outside world, if that would resonate with some of our viewers, what do you want to be known for? Right? We can be deliberate about this, right?
Absolutely.
Do you like gracious, humorous? What do you want to be known for? And then come up to that. That's not really a resolution, but that's from an inside job. Who am I and who do I want to be?
Correct. And it's your evolution. It's your own personal evolution, not resolution. So that is the most important takeaway. So evolve to resolve, people. And hopefully we'll see you in 2022.
Absolutely. And here's to you. Thank you, Rose. Thank you for joining. And all the
Yes.
listeners, thank you for joining. And we're ready for takeoff for 2022. May it be everyone's best year yet. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers, everyone.